Different denominators. Esther was diagnosed with a stroke. Right after her stroke, Esther only had 2/3 of her mobility in her left arm. After resolving the vascular issue and going to physical therapy, she regained 1/6 of her mobility back. What is the fraction of Esther's mobility still missing in her arm? So from this problem, we can see that we're going to have a subtraction problem. So we would do 2/3 minus 1/6. And as you notice, we have different denominators. We have a 3 and we have a 6. So we cannot do this subtraction quite yet. So let's go over a few things first. If the denominators do not match, we need to find the least common multiple or least common denominator. So we will do this by multiplying the denominators by missing factors. Then we will multiply the numerators by the same factors. And the reason that we multiply both the top and the bottom number in each fraction is to keep the fraction the same. So let's go back to our problem. So what we want to do is we want to do the factorization of our denominators to see what we're missing in order to get them to be the same. So 2/3 is going to stay 2/3. 1/6 can be also broken out into 2 times 3, as that gives us 6. So when we look at these two numbers, we see that there's a 3 here and a 3 here. So all we're missing in the first term is a 2. So what we would do would be to multiply the top and the bottom by 2 in order to get the same common denominator. So this problem then becomes 4 as 2 times 2 is equal to 4, and then 2 times 3 is equal to 6. So we have 4/6 minus 1/6. And now we can do this problem as we have the same denominator. So 4/6 minus 1/6 is equal to 3/6. And because we want to reduce, if we can, this would actually just become 1/2. So this becomes 1/2 because 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 1/2 is our answer for this problem. So now let's look at another example. Dan's wife called 911 after noticing that Dan had many of the symptoms of a stroke. If it took the ambulance 5/6 of an hour to pick up Dan and transport him to the hospital, and it took 3/8 of an hour before the vascular blockage was resolved, what fraction of time did it take between the stroke occurring and the blood flow returning to Dan's brain? So from this problem, we can see that we are going to be doing an addition. So we have 5/6 plus 3/8. Notice again, we do not have the same common denominator. So we will need to do some factoring. So we will need to do some prime factorization on these denominators to find our common denominator. So if we do 5/6, 6 becomes 2 times 3. And then 8 can be broken out into 2 times 2 times 2. Now, if you remember, we can do the factoring tree. If we did 8 divided by 2, and then this gets us 4, and this breaks down into 2 and 2. So that's how we got those. Now we can see that for the first one, we are missing 2 of the 2's in order to get 3. So we want to have the same common denominator. So we would multiply the first number by 2 times 2, so 4. And then the second number, So let's write that. So we have 2 times 3, and we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, so it equals the same. So this is multiplying just by 1. Then the second number, we're missing that 3. So we would multiply it by 2 times 2, and we would multiply the top and the bottom by 3. So now we would have the same common denominator this way if we wrote it all out. So let us now multiply out. So we'll deal with the top. 2 times 2 is equal to 4, times 5 is equal to 20. So we get 20 over, so 2 times 2 is equal to 4, times 2 is equal to 8, times 3 is equal to 24, plus 3, we'll do the top, 3 times 3 is 9, and then once again, 2 times 2 times 2 is equal to 8, times 3 is equal to 24. So now we have a problem that we can do as we have the same denominator. So we would just add the top together. So 20 plus 9 is equal to 29, and we just leave the denominator the same as 24. And this is in reduced form, so we can just go ahead and circle that.